The second episode of House of the Dragon Season 2, titled Rhaenyra the Cruel, premiered on Sunday, June 23rd. If you haven't watched it yet, I have a review of the costumes in the premiere episode, A Son for a Son, and you can find the link to that video in the pinned comment below. Now in this video, I'll be counting down the top 10 most compelling costumes from the episode, highlighting any callbacks to Season 1 and Game of Thrones. While this list primarily focuses on the costumes that reflect the characters and their impact on the storytelling, I must admit I've also included some simply because they are visually stunning. For the sake of this video and review and the season as a whole, I won't include any costumes from Season 1, such as Otto Hightower, who appears to be wearing a repeat, or Mysaria. However, I may occasionally include costumes from other episodes if they had too little screen time to make it on my list. Please note there will be spoilers for all of Season 1 and Episodes 1 and 2 of Season 2. But I will steer clear of any book spoilers, so please refrain from mentioning those in the comments below. Thank you. Now let's dive into the countdown. There's something here for both Team Green and Team Black. Number 10, Hugh and Cat. Let's begin with Hugh the blacksmith and his wife Cat, who are attending to their ailing daughter. Hugh wears a leather doublet with buckle fasteners, but in the throne room scene in the premiere, he added an overgown. Now, Cat's costume is particularly striking. It sort of resembles Anglo-Saxon attire with a shift and overgown, and the smocked apron, topped with a narrow belt, evokes the Viking era, though it's fastened with ties instead of brooches. Her bias-cut shift features intricate zigzag detailing, possibly embroidery, on the neckline. And while I don't have a screen grab, Cat was also present during Prince Jaehaerys' funeral procession. I'll try to do a dedicated video on the small folk and minor characters at some point in the season because these costumes deserve more attention. Number 9, Allison dark green brocade dress. Allison had 3 dresses this episode, and I ranked this near the bottom because while it appears beautiful, it was too dark to fully appreciate, and it lacked the narrative significance of her other 2 gowns. It shares a similar cut to her episode 1 gown, featuring a medieval-style silhouette with long hanging sleeves. The fabric appears to be a brocade of some sort, adorned with embroidery and beading along the neckline and trim on the sleeves. But instead of a belt, there's gold piping at the waistline. I was pleasantly surprised to see Allison change into this fresh gown after her private bath. My favorite part of this look, however, is the gold necklace she wears to complete it. As she removes it in the privacy of her room, she discovers Sir Criston Cole sitting on her bed. Number 8, Rhaenyra Red Dress. Rhaenyra wears a full-length dark red gown at Dragonstone. The silhouette is similar to her black scaly dress from episode 1 that's also featured on the poster. It appears to be made from some kind of crackled velvet, giving the impression of dragon scales. The V-shaped collar, like her episode 1 dress, features silver embroidery that is repeated on the bell sleeves and narrow belt. Now in the show, the gown sparkles quite a bit, suggesting to me that perhaps Swarovski or Austrian crystals might have been embedded in the beading to catch the light. And while the silhouette is not the same, the color is reminiscent of Dany's dark red dress from Season 8 of Game of Thrones. What's actually remarkable about that is that it's the only time in all 8 seasons, despite having some creeping red into her costumes, that Dany wore red. Number 7, Allan of Hallambison. In episode 1, Allan wore a very simple hop-sack shirt, dyed Valyrian blue, trousers, tall boots, and a leather obi-style belt. Now in episode 2, he dons a diamond-patterned quilted gambeson. This asymmetrical jacket is fastened with leather ties, and the detachable sleeves are attached at the shoulder with leather laces. The Valyrian crest is fastened across his chest. This costume immediately brought to mind a young Rhaenyra wearing a similar outfit in the first half of House of the Dragon in Season 1. However, the construction of Allan's costume is superior. Firstly, the costume fits very well, and the weight of the quilting is more substantial. The leather collar, cuffs, and binding add more gravitas. Additionally, the fabric has this lovely texture and appears to be custom dyed with paint added along the stitching of the diamond quilting to give it a more three-dimensional quality. In contrast, Rhaenyra's jacket fabric just looks flat. Overall, I think this is a solid costume for Allan. Number 6. Allison Teal Blue Gown. While this beautiful velvet gown was featured in the trailer, its color is quite surprising, as it harkens back to Allison's palette from when she was a young woman in the first half of Season 1. Since episode 1.5, Allison has consistently dressed in shades of green. This sudden shift in her wardrobe might indicate her guilt over recent decisions. In the show, Allison's mother is a Leary Florent, whose house heraldry features a red fox and a circle of blue flowers on ermine. Therefore, the palette of this gown could be a blend of her mother's and father's house colors. I'll provide more details about this costume once I have better pictures. And speaking of House Florent, I'm still hopeful we'll see ermine fur on one of the costumes in future episodes. If you enjoy this kind of content, consider subscribing to my channel, or if you'd like to support the channel in a more meaningful way, I've set up a Patreon with tiers that offer perks. You can find the link in my description. Number 5. Bala Red Coat Dress. It's rare to see a Targaryen dressed in rich red, but Bala looks commanding in this striking velvet or possibly suede archery coat dress. The color really stands out in the exterior scenes, and it ties in nicely with Jacaerys' ensemble, especially his dark red velour coat. The dress appears to be overdyed with black to emphasize the hem and seams. Now, the silhouette is reminiscent of Daenerys Targaryen's style, but with a twist. I really like how the shoulders are incorporated into the bodice seams with this interesting tuck. The black and leather applique detailing on the front and back of the dress is similar to the leatherwork on Daemon's doublet featured on the poster. The dress has a pretty stand-up collar that looks like ruffles made from leather dragon scales, softening the otherwise structured costume. The ensemble is complete with a narrow tulle leather belt with small leather belt mounts, mid-length fingerless leather gloves, and black suede or leather tall boots that lace up in the back. Number 4. Aegon Black Doublet. As the episode picks up shortly after the murder of his son, Prince Jaehaerys, Aegon is unraveling in his court costume. However, later in the episode, he changes into a beautifully embroidered black doublet, temporarily abandoning the green. Interestingly, this new attire resembles King Viserys' early looks in Season 1, which is notable since Otto tells Aegon he's nothing like his father before being sacked by the young king. Like his other costumes embellished with his gold mount Sunfire, you might notice the 2 dragon heads on his stand-up collar. This style of stumpwork embroidery was also featured on Cersei and Sansa's costumes in Game of Thrones. One of my viewers asked about Aegon's wig this season and why it looks so messy. While I couldn't find the exact quote from Glenn Carney, who plays Aegon, he mentioned that the wig is meant to look like he just rolled out of bed. While it is a little longer in Season 2, the length was a decision made in Season 1. Glenn Carney told Screen Rant, "That was from discussions Miguel and I had at the start. I was like, I don't want to have long, luscious Targaryen locks because he hates that. Like, his character's brother Aemond is completely reveling in it. Whereas Aegon just throws it away. He was like, take it off. He doesn't want to be defined by his family. He hates his family because, in his own head, they hate him." Number 3. Helena Green Funeral Overgown. Parading a grieving mother and grandmother through the streets of King's Landing is purely a political move by Otto Hightower to garner sympathy from the small folk. Both Helena and her mother, Allison, are dressed for these roles. Helena's ensemble is a variation of her outfit from episode 1, where she is seen sitting on the floor of her apartment doing embroidery. For the funeral scene, the wardrobe team added an overgown in a rich emerald green worn over her mossier green undergown. If you zoom in, the chaotic nature of the fabric resembles Helena's sketches on her walls. In some still images, you can see the exquisite beading detail on the stomacher, which looks like sunbursts in shades of blue, green, and gold. I believe this was done by embroiderer extraordinaire Michelle Carragher. The overgown is fastened with a single oversized gold clasp. On her head, Helena wears a tiara similar to the one Allison wore in episode 1 for the funeral, topped with a forest green silk organza veil with a rolled hem. Steph Miles, a freelance costume and prop maker, indicated on Instagram that she made Helena's headdress and veil for the show. The gold tiara appears to be set with blue-green pearls. Meanwhile, her gold necklace features a fancy Faith of the Seven pendant with a greenstone center surrounded by pearls. Now, if you recall, Blood pulled her simple Faith of the Seven pendant from her neck in the last episode. Number 2, Allison Green Velvet Funeral Gown. Allison wears an amazing emerald green silk velvet gown to the funeral of her grandson Prince Jaehaerys. She also wore this gown in the poster. I thought I would address the color palette for the greens, as there's been some online discussion about this becoming the default color of House Hightower. According to the book Fire and Blood, the color of the beacon's fire is changeable, with a green flame used to call House Hightower's banners. Therefore, the show's heraldry features a white stone watchtower crowned with green flame on a smoky gray field, a change from the book's coat of arms, which depicts a white tower topped with flames on smoke gray. This new heraldry is featured in Season 2 of House of the Dragon on banners, shields, and armor. The center front of the gown appears closed with gold metal fasteners, but I believe those are decorative and that the gown is likely closed with hooks and eyes. The gown is trimmed with gold braid at the center front and neckline. Friend of the show Casta Hex revealed in our Thursday live stream that they did the embroidery and trim work on this gown, including creating the loop detail with the gold braid. They mentioned that the velvet was very difficult to work with. And I don't know the exact source of the velvet, but I found this brilliant green silk velvet from Top Fabrica Soho that could work very well for a cosplay. Allison's tiara and veil were seen at the end of the premiere episode. To complete the look, Allison wears a simple Faith of the Seven pendant necklace and a pair of gold earrings with freshwater pearls. By the way, did you notice that when Allison dropped her gorgeous velvet gown onto the floor, mon Dieu, she had a weird shift of sorts underneath? I hope to get a better look at that in future episodes. Before we get to the number 1 most compelling costume, here are a few honorable mentions. I'm combining Otto Hightower and Lara Strong because while their costumes are nice, I haven't noticed any significant changes since Season 1. Otto might be wearing a new doublet, but its cut is nearly identical to his other court looks. The same goes for Larys. I am curious to see how Otto's costume evolves now that he's leaving King's Landing. Another honorable mention is Adam of Hall, who, like his brother Allan in episode 1, dons a very simple shipwright uniform, which is a lovely textured Valarian blue shirt laced in the front, trousers, boots, and a leather belt with 3 buckles. I look forward to seeing more of him in future episodes. Now for the number 1 most compelling costume from the episode, Rhaenyra blue-gray nightgown. House of the Dragon is really elevating their nightwear game. I love Rhaenyra's silvery blue pleated silky nightgown paired with a scaly burnout velvet overgown trimmed in metallic silver braid. As soon as I saw Rhaenyra's ensemble, it reminded me of the finely pleated gowns by Spanish designer, polymath, artist, and inventor Mariano Fortuny. Here are a few examples of his work to give you some context. An evening wrap and Delphos dress circa 1925 from the Fine Arts Museums of San Francisco, a Delphos dress in pleated ice blue silk from 1910 to 1920 from the Hotel Druid auction in Paris, and the Peplos House Fortuny dress from 1934 in the Met Museum collection. One thing I feel would have made more sense in the scene is if her handmaiden Alinda had removed Rhaenyra's overgown before she climbed into bed. It was bad enough that Rhaenyra seemed to have the flattest pillow in the 7 kingdoms, but wearing that overgown would have made her overheated. Now, all joking aside, I think it would have made Rhaenyra appear more vulnerable while attempting to escape harm during the duel between Sirs Eric and Auric. Rhaenyra's choice of nightwear might reflect the House Velaryon color palette, especially now that Daemon has left Dragonstone. With his departure, Rhaenyra needs the support of Lord Corlys Velaryon and the strength he brings to her cause. Recall that in Season 1, Lena Velaryon, Rhaenys Targaryen, and Bala Targaryen were all seen in silvery blue costumes. Alternatively, Rhaenyra could be honoring her mother, Aemma Arryn, though House Arryn's colors are typically a darker blue. The decision to dress her in a lighter color could also be practical. Red and black outfits would conceal blood, making the scene more impactful with her in lighter attire. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the costumes in episode 2 or the season so far. I'll have more House of the Dragon content coming your way over the coming weeks. Thank you for spending time with me. I'll see you in the next video.